Hello and welcome to Boomer 11, ladies and gentlemen. And here we are to talk about the game, which is India versus Australia. The Indian team is in action, and Indian team are here to play their first ever game of the World Cup. There's no better way to start off than to play against Australia in Chennai. If you look historically as well, India versus Australia has been an intriguing contest. So this is going to be an interesting one, definitely in Chennai. And to add to all of this, remember that you know the teams have gotten off to good starts already. You saw South Africa winning by 100 odd runs. That you have teams like Pakistan and teams like New Zealand already up there with the starts. So it is an important game for India in all aspects to get off to a good start and to get a mark in the tournament. And to add to all this, remember that this is going to be the tournament to watch out for a lot of reasons. So here we are doing the live. So before we get into the live, remember to check out our app Boomer Level because it is a premium app now, and you can check out our shop. You can buy stuff and get into premium contest on our app. So we have 1.5 hours more for the game. So within 1 hour will be the toss. You can make your team right now already on Boomer Level. So it really helps. Once you get into there and you can have enough time, make your team and make get some big prize at the end of the day. Remember, it's a big game on in the hands today, so you can win some big prize. And check the predictor contest as well, where you can predict for today's game and win some mega prizes. But without further ado, let's get into this game. Jaren, massive game. India versus Australia. They just played a series. Looks like they've been playing a four-match series now. It's a continuation of where they left off, but World Cup, Australia, and it's always a different ball game. You're on mute.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much the Super Sunday, as they would say, because the Clash of the Titans is the best way to describe it because two teams who have had an absolute, an amazing World Cup history so far. Australia, obviously, five-time champions as well. On the other hand, India, two-time champions, just as good. And I think this time around, you would say that both the teams are really well balanced, and it's not going to be easy. I know India is missing the likes of Shubman Gill most likely, but even then it won't really play into it because it just seems like despite missing someone like Shubman Gill, who is very close to the world number one batting ranking as well, it won't bother India as much because we have the likes of Ishan Kishan, KL Rahul, who can still open the batting. So overall, you would have to say that India are looking all set, and so is Australia as well. With under Pat Cummins, they've done a very good job when it comes to one-day format, but a few things here and there for both the teams. I think obviously when you look at Australia as well, the major concern probably will be the likes their middle order collapses that's been happening ever since the South Africa series. We saw a little bit of it in India series as well, but overall, yeah, I will pretty much excited. I think it's going to be one of the biggest or probably one of the most closest matches if everything goes right for both the teams. Now you're on mute now.
Yeah, I mean, to be very fair, when we talk about these kind of matches, we have to understand that it all comes down to handling these moments. And in World Cups, Australia, I've always believed that they take a game further up than what they usually play. You can understand that, okay, they've had middle order collapses, they've had few bad games running into the World Cup, but they tend to put that all behind come a big tournament like World Cup. And we've seen that multiple times in multiple World Cups in the recent past, especially. You can say the previous Australia, they were dominant throughout the 4 year cycle, and they come to the World Cup and they dominate, win, and go. But even if you look at the last 4 years or last 5 years for that matter, 2018 they had a very bad time. 2019 coming into the World Cup, they were nowhere there in that World Cup. I mean, to be very fair, nobody even put them in the top four. But come the World Cup, they turned it up. So that's what Australia can do on a big day. Even 2020 World Cup and 2021, nobody gave Australia a chance to win it in UAE, but they went on to win the World Cup in UAE. Now that is what the Australian team can do on good days, and that's what Australian team always got their history, legacy. We often tend to talk about the legacy as a terminology, and I think in big tournaments, legacy is a massive factor. We talk about Real Madrid and UCL, we talk about Australia, Brazil. These kind of teams, carry their legacy. They look for inspirations, and they get motivated by what their previous generations have done, and that just drives them and pushes them forward to play even better.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, expectations also from the nation, from the country. The fact that Australia has done it so many times, and members of this team has done it so many times, right? And that's always something that they can draw inspiration from. They've been there, they've done it all, and you're right about Australia in that way. They believe every World Cup, every ICC tournament that they can go ahead and win it, and every tournament they are the favorites for a reason because they've got the mentality, the tough boy mentality that these guys have, that they can wither any situation whatsoever, and that's the reason why most tournaments, what people always talk about is if you beat Australia, then you have your chance of winning the World Cup just increases that much more because that's how difficult an opponent they are. As you mentioned, there are legacy teams, and it's always like that, right? If you beat Brazil in a football World Cup, you feel more confident. If you beat Australia in a cricket World Cup, you feel more confident. You beat Real Madrid in the Champions League, you feel more confident. So Australia is that kind of team, and this team definitely has got what it takes to win. And I mean, the one in UAE as well. As you mentioned, not a lot of people expected it because they were going into the tournament with a lot of question marks on their form. But everything just comes together when it's the ICC tournament and the stakes are high. The Australian team will rise up to the moment. Abel, you're on mute.
Australia will win. Pakistan is supporting Australia. Yeah, to be honest, nobody cares who Pakistan supports or not. I mean, we really don't care. So it doesn't matter. So going into that factor, let's talk about Team India. Shubman Gill's absence, massive, massive, massive. Just heading into that big game. Uh, we saw what he can do against Australia. We've seen what he did in that series gone by. And the form he's been in 1,200 runs this year. So tough to defeat. It's so tough to go back and look at a player and say, okay, wait a minute, okay, even without Shubman Gill, we can do it. I don't think India ever had in their wildest of dreams that Shubman will be the one to miss out, and then you will have to find a backup. I know they had Ishan here and there, but at the end of the day, you are looking at a massive blow to Team India just before a big game.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You're right about that because Shubman Gill is a huge factor in how in India's recent success in the one-day format at least because he's just been phenomenal and he's very close to breaking Sachin Tendulkar's record of all-time run getter in a single calendar year. He's just been phenomenal and he's risen as a player as a player we all knew that he can be ever since his under 19 days. Although, you would have to say that if there's one team that can still afford missing someone like Shubman Gill, it's India because we've got options on in the squad to, replace him. Now, I know we won't get the same caliber or we might not get the same, the same impact, but that does not mean that India is going to, completely feel like they can't win this game without Shubman Gill. There's nothing against Shubman Gill. It's just the kind of squad depth that India has. And so that's a kind of phenomenal squad depth that makes India, a big candidate to go ahead and win the World Cup.
Absolutely. I mean, there is no two ways about that. To be very fair, the squad depth India have had coming into this particular World Cup, it was all about how India were going to manage the bench strength, right? The biggest question before the World Cup was why are we testing a lot of bench strength? But now it kind of makes sense. It was a longer picture ultimately that India tested their bench strength. India wanted these players to have a feel of things. Come these moments, you want your players ready. You did put Ishan Kishan one of the series in West Indies. We all did question that. You gave Ishan Kishan that opportunity if you have to go back in time in the Asia Cup as well. That opportunities were given to Ishan Kishan, and now if you look back at it, finally he might be making that opportunity count, and he's gonna go out there, open the batting against Stark, against Hazelwood. If he comes good, we all are gonna be like, okay, he did a phenomenal job. He should be starting more often. But if he doesn't, that's fine. He's not our main player. We can still take that. But that preparation which India had coming into the World Cup, how massive factor is going to be today? Because Asia Cup, a big box, Australia series, a big box tick. And then we've had some preparations in this year's ODIs. We'll talk about the West Indies ODI, testing out our bench strength, etc., etc. But I think Asia Cup was the biggest box which India had to tick, which they did. And Australia series, they waited for summer players to get in form. So India have a lot of players in form, which from number 1 to number 11, every players, most of the players are in form. Even Ishan Kishan is in form. Virat Kohli is in form. Rohit Sharma is in form. Shreyas Iyer is in form. KL Rahul is in form. Then you talk about Hardik Pandya and Jadeja. Jadeja's batting is the only concern I see at this point. And that almost every box is ticked.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to give credit to Rahul Dravid and his coaching staff as well for that, because I know we've had a lot of questions about this as well, because it just felt like we're not settling on a final 11. But in many ways, you're right. What that system also gave way to is the fact that a lot of players have exposure before they come into this setup. It's not like we're throwing them into a den of wolves. They already know what to expect. And I know the World Cup is going to be a lot more high stakes than a bilateral series, but at least they have been put in situations before where they will need it to perform. And that's one of the reasons why you would say that the likes of Shubman Gill missing out, if he does, that is, I think the final update is not yet given to us, but it's most likely for sure. And when that happens, one good thing about it is the fact that someone like Ishan Kishan is already waiting in the wings to take over. And by Shubman Gill missing out, that kind of knot that we had, the problem of plenty that we had in the middle order is sorted for at least this match, because now we know that Iyer, KL Rahul, and Ishan Kishan all will play in whatever order, in whatever batting order that is decided. So, but yeah, having said that, you would have to say that India will still miss that solidity we got at the top of the order, with Shubman Gill and Rohit Sharma have had a phenomenal opening partnership. But having said that, Ishan Kishan and Rohit Sharma also know how to bat together. They've done that time and time again for Mumbai Indians in the IPL. They've also done it for India in the international stage as well, although not as much. But that's why I think Australia will also know that Shubman Gill missing out doesn't mean that India is out and out.
Absolutely. We've got some question. I think what is India's best playing 11 for the day? I mean, that's a most asked question as well at this point. What is going to be India's ideal playing 11? And now, if you look at things, who do you play? Is it Ashwin or is it Shardul Thakur? Now that is India's biggest question, because we at least know who India's top seven are going to be. But the number eight has been the biggest question coming into the World Cup. A lot of people there. You have Shardul, you have Ashwin to play, or even Mohammad Shami. I think it's going to be Ashwin, considering it's Chennai, and but because of the weather around, we don't know what Chennai pitch to expect, because it's been raining on and off in Chennai over the last few days. At least as of now, it looks extremely hot and humid. But other than that, if you have to look at a Chennai pitch, traditionally speaking, uh, it is a turning track. I mean, at least it gets to slow down towards lateral. Maybe the first 60, 70 overs of the game, you're going to get a good track. But come the 80th over, if there is no dew, then you're going to see the track slow down. So that is where India will have to be extremely careful as to who does India want to pick for today's game, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to say that Ashwin probably gets that slight nod ahead because of what to expect in Chennai. That's what conventional wisdom will tell you. But then it depends on the pitch report. It depends on how the pitch behaves. As you rightly mentioned, it's been under the covers, I think, for last 30 odd hours, if I'm not wrong, because it's been raining. It's been bucketing down, is what we have come to know. And when that happens, the pitch can behave a lot more differently. Also, you would have to say that if it is a normal Chennai track, it can be abrasive, which means that once the ball gets older after 25 overs, it's going to grip and turn. That's the case. Ashwin is obviously the preferred option. But otherwise, if it's a flat track like or if it's a wicket where the ball will just skid on from the surface, I think then you probably would go ahead with the Shardul Thakur, because you don't want to have too many spinners as well, where it becomes very difficult for India to control the game. And that's what happened. I mean, yesterday, for instance, I know it was a very different pitch, but you saw that on a flatter track, both, especially a team like Sri Lanka, did not go with two spinners. They went with one spinner, Velalage, and they selected Dhananjay De Silva as a second spinner, and same
Yeah.
with South Africa as well. Tabraiz Shamsi was on the bench. They had three fast bowlers. So that's the way you would see. That's probably how you would see the Australian and the Indian team lineup if the pitch is skiddier and flat. But otherwise, if it is a traditional Chennai pitch, then yeah, you expect Ashwin to play.
Absolutely. Where is the World Cup's atmosphere? Har match mein stadium khali? I think it's a genuine question. I think it's a very good question from Aisha, and we've all asked this question at some stage as to why the stadium's empty. But if you look at the first match, I mean, the turnout was 47,000. It looked very empty, at least in the initial part, but towards the end, after the dawn, you just saw a lot of people turn up. 47,000, but even 47,000 in a stadium which is 50, 1,30,000 is not even 50% of what it is. So you will see that stadium being extremely empty because of that. But I think Pakistan Netherlands games was the least accounted attendance of this tournament. And then that after that you have had good attendance in almost every game. Even yesterday's Delhi game, initially the crowd hasn't come in, but towards the dawn, once the sun sets in, people are coming in. I think that's also because it is working days and nobody are very unemployed in our country, at least, that they will be coming and watching every game. So it's very tough for these people to come. So once they're done with their work, so they will come and watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I also think maybe though, there is one issue that I have noticed. You're right about the fact that, Ahmedabad, when the match started, it was it was right at 1:30, 1:32, and I don't think any employer is gonna let their team, let their I mean, employees go and watch a cricket match. But towards the evening, in the second half of the, second half of the game, where you had, I think it was New Zealand batting. Yeah, when New Zealand was batting, the crowd was there. Yet, I mean, even yesterday as well, you saw there was enough crowd building because yesterday was a Saturday. A lot more schools are free. A lot more, but you know what? Abel, you're on mute.
I was not talking to you, sorry. But either way, I was just going to say
Yeah.
that, first match as well, when we talk about what Aisha has mentioned, is a very genuine point. Because first match mein full hona chahiye tha. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because the scheduling of a first match of a World Cup is supposed to be the host nation starting off. Usually that's how it is. If you look in 2015, it was Australia. 2011, it was India. 2019, it was England. It's always been that way. If you go back to 2007, it was West Indies and Australia. So either way, it had to be the host nation starting of the World Cup. Until unless it's IPL, you see the finalists of the last year play the first match of the tournament. But it didn't make any sense to me. So as Aisha rightly mentions, first match में full तो होना चाहिए था, and first match should have never been on a weekday on a Thursday. First match should have been on a weekend. I mean, it's not going to make a lot of difference in scheduling if it would have started the tournament on 7th of October or 8th of October. It would have not made a lot of difference. I know you had to fit in a lot of games, 45 days, but conducting a final for November 19th, you could have been much more proactive or start on the weekend before it. I mean, you were all over the place in terms of scheduling. I thought a lot of games were being rescheduled. It was a bit much of a havoc, to be honest, very creative going into this World Cup. And I'll blame the organizers to a large extent. If you look at the stadiums as well, I think a great review has come out from DDCA, a stadium which has not been accepted by a lot of people towards over the years, but it's been the best stadium in the last four matches. In the last four matches, the best stadium review had gone to DDCA. Even if you look at the best stadium in the world, which is Ahmedabad, as people claim to be, seats were bad. A lot of things were pretty much in a havoc position. Hyderabad had its bad reviews, and Dharamshala, it's a small town. You can't expect anything much happening from there. But DDCA, great work. That's what they've done. So yeah, I mean, Aisha is not far off from saying that scheduling has been extremely poor in terms of how they've gone about it. And no opening ceremony. I really don't know what's the reason behind that as well. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of low hype. It feels like a World Cup qualifiers which has been held. To be very fair.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think BCCI on their end has done a lot of stuff. I think they've given, as far as I'm aware, they've given grants to every stadium that is being prepared so that they can use that money in order to repair the stadiums or improve the stadium, make it World Cup quality. But if you have to blame the organizers, I mean, that's definitely the state boards, and the onus is on them to improve their stadiums and make it World Cup quality. Another issue that I've really identified, Abel, is that as you rightly mentioned, it should have been on a Sunday. It should have started on Sunday. It should have started with the host nation. Although, when I think Aisha said this about the population, about I think our country's population, I think you also have to understand, Aisha, that people are not going to turn up for, England and New Zealand's match or Sri Lanka and South Africa's match. At least Indians are not gonna, until unless you're a cricket crazy fan like us. I mean, we would turn up for anyone's match because we just love the sport of cricket. But not everyone has to love the sport of cricket to the extent that they watch every country's match or every team play. But having said that, the amount of traveling fans is an issue, Abel, because usually in a World Cup you see a lot of traveling fans from other countries coming in. That is one major factor that I feel is missing in this World Cup, and that's the reason why I think that hype is also missing.
And that's also because traveling for this is not the season for traveling. It's October, November. It's not Christmas season, or it is in the summer. It is right in between the both. So you cannot afford to get a long vacation to start traveling all across the world. If you look at somewhere else in the world, World Cup either happens earlier in June, July, where it is summer season. Last time in England happened June, July, so you saw a lot of fans showing up. Or if you talk about the World Cup in Australia or India in 2011, it happened in peak summer vacation times in India. So people were free to travel with their kids all across. But now this is either a festive season, which is going to start in a few days time, or it is exam times, or it is work times, high pressure work times. So I don't think people are going to be free at least until 6 o'clock in the evening. So I think every game, which also includes mega matches, even some of the India games, I'm expecting stadiums to be full by evening, until unless it's on a Sunday or a Saturday, whenever India are playing. Otherwise, it's gonna be full only by evening. That's primarily because people do not have the time. People do not have time for 50 overs cricket. Let it be anywhere in the world. If this World Cup was conducted even in England, you would have seen that. You saw in the last year's World Cup what was the turn up. Average attendance was 15,000 in every game. That's primarily because people do not have the time for the 50 over format. But I think we are drifting away from the topic of today's match. Let's come back to that. I think today's match, talking about which, I think toss is going to be decisive if you see anything in the pitch. We don't know how the pitch is going to behave as of now. If the pitch is slightly holding up, if you see any dry patches, it should be a no-brainer for any team to bat first on this wicket.
Yeah, I think from what I'm also hearing, I think if you just look at the whole aspect of it, it's going to be, as far as we know, so far today, it's going to be slight drizzle. Is from what we're hearing. It's just 10% chance as well. And as you mentioned last time as well, when it comes to weather calculations, it's always 10 percentage of. I mean, it's the total area that's going to receive rain and then multiplied into the probability. So 10 percentage is a very small margin, and the chances are it's not going to affect. But then overall as well, just looking at the pitch, the fact that it is known to be a tough pitch to chase on. I mean, saying that there's no dew, considering there's no dew, it's a tough pitch to play on. I think teams will look to bat first, but then there's also the factor, right, that one day format now everyone wants to chase. Now, I know this World Cup, it hasn't really been a good, World Cup for chasing teams yet, except for New Zealand in that first game. Because after that, we saw South Africa win batting first. We saw Bangladesh win batting first as well. Having said that, I mean, even Pakistan batting first and winning, even though Netherlands did put up a fight. Having said that, though, you would probably see that if the teams feel there's even slight chance of dew coming on, teams might just decide to chase, because both India and Australia will feel that chasing is their strength. Because especially Australia as well, their death bowling, for instance, hasn't been top notch for a long time now. I know Stark is someone who can do damage, but he's still done most of his damage up top. So that's the reason why I think both the teams, if they feel that there is even slight bit of probability that batting second will give them an advantage, they'll definitely pounce on it.
Absolutely. And if you look at Chennai as well, you don't like to chase here. Until unless you're going to ball out a team cheaply around 200, 250, then you might fancy your chance. If it's 280, 290, or 300 for that matter, all of a sudden the Chennai pitch tends to be slightly weird, too, especially in the 90th over of a game, which I'm talking about 40th over in the second innings. It tends to get slower. If you go back to that one day which was played within India and Australia earlier this year in Chennai, Australia batted first and India were chasing. And remember, this was peak summers, which I'm talking about. And you had a lot of, even though you had a little bit of dew, the ball wasn't still coming onto the bat, which Indian players did struggle, and India capitulated if you look at that chase. So that is why I think India should be extremely careful in terms of how they're going to plan that chase, even if at all they chase it. Because with toss, we cannot say anything. Any team can chase, any team can bat first. But in ideally, on a good circumstances, I think given the weather around as well, I think India would like to bat first. Get that little bit of coating where you're cross one 290, 300, and then you can let your Kuldeeps, maybe Ashwin if he's playing, or Jadeja to come into the game properly. And then you have your pacers as well. With Hardik Pandya, you can ball your cutters in this kind of a game because the boundaries are bigger. Chennai is one of the biggest grounds in India, especially when it comes to the square boundaries. And you can get a lot of protection. You are not going to be hit for those 50, 60-meter sixers here. So, and that's going to give spinners a lot more confidence as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of the ways that Chennai Super Kings have really established their dominance in the Indian Premier League. It's always been spin to win here in Chennai, and the local boy Ashwin knows really well about this ground more than anyone else. So I think in that sense, you would also say that Kuldeep, Ashwin, and Jadeja combining together could be a big threat for Australia. uh, depending on how the ground behaves. But most likely it's going to be a dry surface. And as you rightly mentioned, it has been humid. It has been dry so far, and the chance of rain is also very less. So and as long as after the pitch report, it just seems like it's going to be one of those Chennai tracks. You know that the teams are going to be clamoring to win the toss and elect to bat first. We saw even I think last one day as well, where Australia did a very good job against India. You saw Glenn Maxwell being really effective against India on these tracks. So it is a spinner's paradise, and I think both the teams will know that they spin. Especially, I think on the other side you have Adam Zampa as well, someone who's done really well in one-day cricket. So it is going to be a spinner-dominant game.
True. I mean, there is no way, it's gonna be a game where fast bowlers dominate in Chennai. I think last time it happened was way back in 2012 when India played Pakistan, when Junaid Khan and Bhuvaneshwar Kumar were on top of the game in that game in Chennai. I thought that was a very different Chennai pitch for a lot of likings. That was the most unexpected Chennai pitch where the ball was seaming off the surface, but I don't think you're gonna get anything like that in Chennai. Post that, you never saw anything like that in Chennai as well. So in Chennai, they're going to keep the traditional nature of the pitch, which is going to be turning, which is going to stick on. I think at least if you're going to bat first, you're going to get the best out of the pitch. You're going to see ball coming onto the bat. Remember, it's a fresh game and it's a fresh start of the season. It's a new pitch laid down for the World Cup. And for example, if you look at the Firozshah Kotla Stadium yesterday in Delhi, usually it turns, right? Some stage of the tournament, it is turning. It does turn. But you saw 425 being smashed there. But you can also say the boundaries are shorter in Firozshah Kotla's runs. You can say at least there were 50 to 60 runs which were extra, which were scored in comparison with any other ground in India. But let's not take anything away from what it could bring in Chennai as well. In Chennai, if it's a good wicket, if there are flat surfaces, you saw it in the IPL as well. This Chennai service is slightly different to what it was previously. If you look at this IPL, because you saw flatter decks, you saw 200s being chased in this IPL in Chennai, which was quite different. Usually 200s are not chased in Chennai, or you don't see high scores in excessive of 190 or 180. But this year's IPL, you saw that on multiple occasions, and I'm not surprised. And I think if you're going to get anything of that sort, then it's going to be a very good deck to bat on, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that was my point from earlier as well. You never know what to expect at the start of the season, and it could be flat. And if I mean being in Chennai, it's still not easier. I mean, it's not as easy as Firozshah Kotla, as you rightly said, because of the bigger boundaries, because of the bigger dimensions of the ground. It's not going to be easy to still go after a spinner. And one thing about Chennai now, even yesterday, Delhi pitch surprised a lot of people because we expected Sri Lanka to have a slight upper hand because of how Delhi pitches behaved in the past. But then yesterday it was flat. It was as flat as a highway, as you would say. But I don't expect that to happen with Chennai because Chennai has always been. I think there have been still instances in Delhi where you've seen flatter decks, but Chennai you've never seen a flat deck, or I think it's been ages since I've seen a flat deck. It's always had that slight edge towards bowlers, and I think today as well it's going to be very similar. But you never know what to expect because of so many factors, right? The fact that it's been under covers for so long, the fact that, as you mentioned, it's a new pitch, it's a fresh pitch, and it's the start of a new season as well. So you never know. I think the first 5-6 games that happen throughout the World Cup can't really predict how the pitches are going to behave.
Absolutely, absolutely. No two ways about it. But yeah, Tejo, win the toss, bat first. It's a no-brainer. But having said that as well, you should be prepared for the other thing as well, which is to win the toss and ball first, and to pick up wickets and to ball the team cheaply. Because here, the biggest issue is gonna be if you're going to chase in excess of 300, 320. How prepared are you? How big a factor the top three are gonna play? Because I certainly believe in a pitch like Chennai in the 40th over of the second innings or 35th over of the second innings, a batter coming in new is going to always find it difficult to chase because that's how it has been. A player, especially from the top three, will have to carry on. And that's been the traditional nature of this pitch as well. Uh, Today, Indian batting order will collapse and Meriko feel area. Okay, fair enough. Due factor, due factor. Because of the rain around, I still think if it is going to get cooler at night, maybe the dew might come in. But especially when you have rain, the chance of dew is extremely low. That's what it is. And when you have a lot of clouds, if there is wind around as well, you might not see dew being a big factor. That's one of the reasons which you have to consider as well. But now what you see in Chennai, it's sunny, it's humid, And if it all gets cooled down in the evening, then dew will come in. I think the practice sessions of the last 2 days will definitely help them know how it is going to go. मेरे को बस कोहली की बैटिंग देखनी है. या फेयर इनफ. आप देखते रहिए कोहली की बैटिंग. अगले अगले हफ्ते भी, अगले संडे भी है, तो उस दिन भी देख सकता है. अगले संडे और भी देख सकता है. So I'll just put the fantasy 11 on the screen right now. So if you haven't already made the teams, go into our app right now. The link is there in the description and make your team. There we go. So that was a fantasy 11 for today's game. And remember, if you guys haven't already made the team, so make it on Boomer 11, and you can check the Predictor contest as well. And we're just few minutes away from the game, which is 30 minutes away from the toss as well. So we'll know what the conditions, what the playing 11s are going to be as well. But this is our fantasy 11. So check it out. Kuldeep Yadav is a massive factor in today's game. Remember that. I know it's going to be a common pick for a lot of people. But if you want to go for an X factor out, some like out of the box pick, it's not a bad idea to go in with a Marnus Labuschagne as well. Marnus Labuschagne is going to be someone who might fetch you a lot of points, considering his Chennai, and you never know if he's going to roll his arm over for a couple of overs here and there. He can be a handy factor. But remember, there's a negative matchup when you pick up Maxwell. Jadeja versus Maxwell is a negative matchup which Maxwell has. So if Maxwell is ready to come out of it and play something great, it's going to be interesting. So that is an out of the box pick as well. So if you're going to go with Maxwell, remember there's a negative matchup with Jadeja. And when you pick up, if you want to go for another one, an interesting choice is going to be Ravindra Jadeja. Not a lot of people are picking him considering his form. Remember, it's Chennai. He's played a lot of cricket in Chennai, and Ashwin if he's there in the 11. So the former Chennai duo, they would want to maybe create an impact in the opening game. So remember, these boys have played in almost all of these grounds. But when you talk about Chennai, there's always a special feeling. The crowd, the weather. Uh, I know it's a yellow team in action today, but I hope for the first time, one of the rare teams, whenever there's a yellow team in action, the wave I hope is towards the blue team, and I'm sure it's towards the blue team. And it's the city is yellow to be very fair, but today it should be blue. And we'll say historically as well, one of the reasons why Australia has always had the wood over India in Chennai is because Chennai has always been yellow. I don't know. I just hope it's not today and India plays well. And thank you all. Remember to come back once we're done with the game. We'll be here for the post match, regardless of the result. Hope it's on a good note for Indian fans. And thank you everybody for joining and for all your questions. We'll be back soon in the evening. Bye bye.
Bye bye, guys.